Where is she? I know she's in here. The crash of a metal tray hitting the floor echoed through the upscale Seoul daycare as a heavy-set man with bloodshot eyes shoved past the reception desk. Behind him, a younger man with the same cruel set to his jaw grabbed a decorating cart and sent it tumbling. Maya Williams. You think you can hide from family? The children in the playroom screamed. Teachers rushed to gather them, their faces pale with terror as the two American men stormed through the building like they owned it. Sir, you cannot be in here. This is a private facility. The director, a petite Korean woman barely 5 feet tall, threw herself in front of the intruders. I'm calling the police. Go ahead and call them, the older man sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. Tell them a father is looking for his ungrateful stepdaughter who stole from her own family and ran halfway across the world. Behind the kitchen counter of the small cafeteria, Maya pressed her back against the cold steel cabinet, her hand clamped over her mouth to silence her own breathing. Her heart hammered so hard she was certain they could hear it. Tears streamed down her face, but she refused to make a sound. They found her. After 18 months in Seoul. After changing her phone number 4 times. After working 3 jobs and sleeping in a storage closet for the first 6 months just to stay invisible. They still found her. I'm telling you, she works here, her stepbrother Devon's voice carried through the thin walls. I saw her myself through the window yesterday. Serving food to these rich brats like some kind of. Sir, the police are on their way. I suggest you leave immediately. Maya squeezed her eyes shut. She'd finally gotten this job 3 months ago. The Starlight Academy daycare was one of the most exclusive childcare facilities in Seoul, serving the children of Korea's wealthiest families. The pay was good. The staff was kind. For the first time in years, she'd started to feel almost safe. And now they'd burn it all down. Just like they burned down everything else. She didn't hear the small footsteps approaching until a tiny voice whispered, "Teacher Maya. Why are you on the floor?" Her eyes flew open. 5-year-old Jun Seo stood before her, his round face tilted in confusion, a half-eaten cookie clutched in his small hand. He was one of her favorites, always quiet, always observant, with eyes far too knowing for such a young child. Jun Seo, she breathed, her voice cracking. Go back to the safe room with the other children, okay? Teacher Maya is. Those men are mean, he said simply. He didn't move. They're looking for you. Another crash from the hallway. Devon's voice, check the kitchen. She always hides in kitchens like the roach she is. Maya's blood turned to ice. Jun Seo, please. But the little boy did something unexpected. He grabbed her trembling hand and squeezed it with surprising strength. His dark eyes met hers with absolute seriousness. Don't cry, Teacher Maya. My daddy says crying means bad people win. I'm not, but she was. She was crying, and she couldn't stop. My daddy is very strong, Jun Seo continued, his voice barely above a whisper.
My daddy is
He
very
makes
strong.
bad people
He makes
go
bad
away.
people go away.
If you marry me, he can make your
too.
bad people go away too. Despite everything, despite the terror, despite the chaos erupting just meters away, Maya let out a broken laugh. Marry you? Yes. He nodded solemnly. You're nice. You give me extra cookies. You don't yell. You should be my mommy. The kitchen door handle rattled. Maya's heart stopped. She's in here. Devon shouted. I saw the door move. Jun Seo stepped in front of Maya, spreading his small arms wide like a shield. You can't come in. This is the teacher's kitchen. No strangers allowed. If you're watching this right now and your heart is already racing, you're in the right place. Before we continue, take 1 second to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me what time it is where you're watching from and what city or country you're in. Trust me, you're going to want to be subscribed for what happens next in this story. The door burst open. Maya instinctively pulled Jun Seo behind her, rising to her feet despite her shaking legs. She positioned herself between the little boy and the two men now filling the doorway. Her stepfather, Harold Williams, grinned when he saw her. That same grin he'd worn the day he'd emptied her mother's savings account. The same grin he'd had when he'd forced Maya to sign over her inheritance at 17. The same grin he'd shown when he'd burned her passport and told her she'd never escape. There she is. My sweet, sweet stepdaughter. Get out, Maya said. Her voice trembled, but she didn't move. You have no right to be here. No right? Harold stepped closer. You owe us, Maya. You owe us everything. Your mother's life insurance. That wasn't supposed to go to you. That money belongs to this family. That money was my mother's dying wish for me to have. She wrote it in her will specifically so you couldn't touch it. Wills can be contested. Devon pushed past his father, his eyes roaming over Maya with something that made her skin crawl. Took us almost 2 years to find you. Do you know how much that cost? How much we had to pay people? You're going to reimburse every penny. I don't have any money. Liar. Harold's false friendliness evaporated. You're working at some fancy rich kid school. These people pay premium. Don't tell me you haven't been saving. Behind her, Jun Seo clutched the back of her uniform. She could feel him shaking. That's when something shifted inside Maya. Something that had been dormant for 18 months. Something she'd been too tired, too scared, too beaten down to access. She straightened her spine. I told you to get out. Devon laughed. Or what? Or I'll start screaming that 2 American men broke into a Korean daycare full of rich children, and I'll make sure every parent in this building knows your faces and your names. Harold's expression flickered. You wouldn't. Try me. Maya's voice dropped low and dangerous. These aren't ordinary families, Harold. These are the people who own this country. You think you can bully your way through here like you did back home? These people have lawyers. They have connections. They have resources you can't even imagine. And they're very, very protective of their children. For a moment, uncertainty crossed Harold's face. But Devon stepped forward, reaching for Maya's arm. You're coming with us. Now. We'll figure out the rest later. Don't touch my teacher. Jun Seo lunged out from behind Maya, sinking his teeth into Devon's hand with all the ferocity his small body could muster. Devon screamed, yanking his hand back. You little monster. You'll what? The voice that cut through the chaos was quiet. Controlled. And somehow more terrifying than all of Harold and Devon's shouting combined. Every head turned toward the doorway. A man stood there in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, his dark hair swept back from a face carved from stone. He wasn't particularly tall, but his presence filled the room like a physical force. Security guards flanked him on either side, but somehow, they seemed unnecessary. His eyes, cold, measuring, dangerous, locked onto Devon's raised hand hovering near his son. Finish that sentence, the man said softly. Tell me exactly what you plan to do to my child. Devon stumbled backward. This is a misunderstanding. The kid bit me. My son bit you. The man stepped into the kitchen, and even Harold retreated. My 5-year-old son, who weighs 18 kilograms, bit you, a grown man. And your response was to raise your hand to him? I wasn't going to hit him. Jun Seo. The man's voice softened fractionally as he addressed the child. Come here. Jun Seo grabbed Maya's hand and pulled her forward with him. She comes too. The man's gaze shifted to Maya for the first time. She felt it like a physical touch, intense, assessing, missing nothing. She was suddenly acutely aware of her tear-stained face, her disheveled uniform, the fact that she'd been hiding on the floor of a kitchen. And who is this? My teacher. Jun Seo squeezed Maya's hand tighter. And my future wife. The temperature in the room dropped. You're, what? I asked her to marry me. She said yes. So now you have to protect her, Daddy. You promised. You said when I find my person, you'll make sure nothing bad ever happens to them. Maya wanted the floor to swallow her whole. He's just a child. It wasn't. These men broke in to hurt her, Jun Seo interrupted. They're her family, but they're bad. Like grandmother. You have to make them go away. The comparison hit something in the man's expression. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Is that true? He addressed Maya directly now, and she felt the weight of his full attention like a spotlight. These men. Who are they to you? Her family, Harold interjected, finding his voice again. I'm her stepfather. This is my son. Whatever lies she's been telling. I wasn't speaking to you. The man didn't even look at Harold. I asked her. Maya swallowed. He was married to my mother before she died. I haven't considered him family in a very long time. She stole from us, Devon spat. Her mother's life insurance was left to me in a legally binding will that you've been trying to contest for years. Maya's voice was steadier now. Maybe it was the security guards. Maybe it was the dangerous stranger who seemed more interested in facts than threats. Maybe she was just tired of running. They've followed me across the world, she continued. They've shown up at every job I've ever had and caused scenes until I was fired. They've emptied my bank accounts through fraud. They've destroyed my credit, my reputation, my relationships. And now they've broken into a building full of children because they think they can still control me. The man listened without expression. When she finished, he turned to his security team. Ensure these two don't leave the premises until the police arrive. They've broken into a private facility, threatened staff, and endangered children. He paused. Contact my legal team. I want a full protective order by morning. You can't do this. Harold sputtered. You don't know who you're dealing with. We're American citizens. You're criminals who trespassed in my building and threatened my son. The man's voice was ice. I don't care what passport you hold. His building? Maya's mind raced. She'd known Starlight Academy served wealthy families, but she'd never paid much attention to the corporate structure. She was just the lunch lady who served snacks and cleaned up spills. Security guards moved efficiently, bracketing Harold and Devon with practiced precision. For the first time in Maya's life, she watched her stepfather look genuinely afraid. This isn't over, Devon hissed as he was led away. We'll be back. We always come back. I'm counting on it. The man's smile was razor-thin. I've been told I need a hobby. Dismantling people like you might be entertaining. The door closed behind them. Silence descended. Maya became suddenly, painfully aware that she was still holding a 5-year-old's hand, her face was a mess, and she was standing in front of someone who clearly wielded more power than she'd ever encountered in her life. I'm so sorry, she started. I never meant for any of this to, I would never put the children in danger, I'll resign immediately if you. Daddy, no. Jun Seo's voice was small but firm. He stepped closer to his father, looking up with eyes that held something Maya couldn't quite read. Don't make her go away. Please. She's the only teacher who isn't scared of me. The man's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. Scared of you? The other teachers think I'm weird. They pretend they don't, but I can tell. Teacher Maya never pretends. Jun Seo glanced back at her. She tells me the truth. Even when it's not happy. And she gives me extra cookies. Extra cookies are a significant bribe, the man said dryly. They're really good cookies. For a moment, something almost human flickered in the man's cold eyes. He reached down and placed a hand on his son's head, the gesture surprisingly gentle. Go with Mississippi Park. I need to speak with your teacher privately. Jun Seo's grip on Maya's hand tightened. You won't make her leave. That depends on our conversation. But Daddy. Jun Seo. The tone left no room for argument. Go. The little boy looked between them for a long moment. Then, with the dramatic sigh only a 5-year-old could produce, he released Maya's hand and shuffled toward the door. He paused at the threshold. Teacher Maya. Yes. I meant it. About getting married. When I'm bigger. He disappeared before she could respond. Maya stood alone with the stranger who apparently owned the building where she worked, her heart racing for entirely new reasons. Sit down, he said, gesturing to a small staff table in the corner. Before you fall down. It wasn't a suggestion. Maya sat. Her legs were shaking badly enough that she was grateful for the chair. The man settled across from her, studying her with the intensity of someone reading a contract for hidden clauses. Up close, she could see he was younger than she'd initially thought, perhaps mid-30s, though something about his bearing added years of weight to his presence. Your name is Maya Williams. Yes. You've worked here for 3 months. Yes. You're from the United States. Georgia, specifically. She blinked. How do you? Your accent. It's subtle, but distinct. He leaned back slightly. You've been in Korea for 18 months. You've held 7 jobs in that time. This is the longest you've maintained employment. Maya felt ice forming in her stomach. Have you been investigating me? No. I'm observing you now and drawing conclusions. His gaze was unervingly direct. You speak Korean well enough to work with children, which means you've been studying since you arrived. Your uniform is pressed but your shoes are worn through, which tells me you spend money on necessities but can't afford replacements. You didn't flinch when those men threatened you, but you positioned yourself to protect my son instinctively. Either you're remarkably brave, or you've faced worse threats than 2 angry men. Maya's hands clenched in her lap. Is there a question in there? Several. He tilted his head. But let's start with the obvious one. You've run from these men for 18 months. They've followed you across the world. What do they actually want from you? Money. The word tasted bitter. My mother's life insurance. It wasn't much, $100,000, but it was meant for me. She made sure of that before she died. She knew what they were. And yet they've spent years pursuing you for it. That seems disproportionate. It's not about the money anymore. Maya met his eyes. It's about control. Harold raised me from age 12. He controlled everything, what I wore, who I talked to, where I went. My mother was sick for years, and she couldn't protect me. When she died, she used the only power she had left. That insurance policy was her way of setting me free. So he's punishing you for escaping. Maya nodded slowly. Every time I build something, they tear it down. It's not about the money. It's about proving he still owns me. The man was silent for a long moment. I understand that kind of person, he said finally, his voice carrying a weight that surprised her. I was raised by one. Before Maya could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then stood abruptly. My legal team will be in contact with you. You'll need to provide detailed documentation of their harassment history. What? Why? Because I'm going to destroy them. He said it casually, like he was discussing the weather. They threatened my son. That can't go unanswered. Mr. Maya realized she didn't even know his name. Kang Dae-ho. The name landed like a thunderbolt. Kang Dae-ho. Kang Corporation. The largest tech conglomerate in South Korea. The man standing before her wasn't just wealthy, he was one of the most powerful businessmen in Asia. I can see you've made the connection. His expression remained unreadable. Does it change anything? No. Yes. I don't know. She pressed her hands to her temples. This is insane. An hour ago, I was making sandwiches for children. Now you've accidentally become engaged to my 5-year-old son and acquired the protection of a man who makes people disappear for a living. The ghost of something, humor, irony, flickered across his face. Though I do it through legal means. Usually. This isn't funny. No. It's not. He moved toward the door. But it's also not a coincidence. Maya's blood chilled. What do you mean? He paused, one hand on the doorframe. Jun Seo doesn't speak to adults. Not teachers. Not nannies. Not anyone except me and occasionally his grandfather, who terrifies him. He's been evaluated by every child psychologist in the country. They all say the same thing, trauma response. Selective communication. Possibly permanent. Maya thought of the little boy who chatted with her about cookies and dinosaurs and whether clouds had feelings. The little boy who had declared he would marry her with absolute seriousness. He talks to me all the time. I know. Dae-ho's expression was unreadable again, but something burned beneath the surface. That's why, when his nanny reported that he'd found a teacher he actually liked, I started paying attention. And that's why, Miss Williams, you're not losing your job. He was gone before she could form a response. What do you think is really going on here? There's clearly something bigger at play. Do you think Dae-ho already knew about Maya before all this happened? Drop your theories in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed because this story is about to take a turn nobody saw coming. 3 days passed. 3 days of police reports, legal consultations, and statements that left Maya so exhausted she could barely stand. Her stepfather and brother were being held pending investigation, something about their visas being flagged, something about international fraud allegations that had apparently been gathering dust in some database for years. Someone had made sure those files were found. Maya had a strong suspicion who that someone was. She hadn't seen Dae-ho since that day in the kitchen. But his presence was everywhere, in the lawyers who materialized at her small apartment, in the new security guards now stationed at the daycare, in the way the other staff looked at her with a mixture of curiosity and awe. The Kang CEO spoke to you personally, one of the younger teachers whispered during lunch. Nobody speaks to him personally. He sends assistants. Maya had no answer for that. Jun Seo, meanwhile, had become her shadow. He waited for her at the kitchen door each morning. He held her hand during activities. He told her detailed stories about his pet fish and his robot collection and the dreams he had about flying. Daddy says I'm going to have dinner with you, he announced on the 3rd day. Maya nearly dropped the juice boxes she was organizing. I'm sorry. Dinner. At our house. Tonight. Jun Seo looked up at her with those two knowing eyes. You should wear something pretty. Daddy likes pretty things. Jun Seo, I don't think. He said to tell you 7 o'clock. A car will come. The little boy paused, suddenly uncertain. You'll come, right? You're not going to leave. The vulnerability in his voice cracked something in Maya's chest. She knelt down to his level, gently taking his small hands in hers. I'm not going anywhere, she said softly. I promise. The car arrived at exactly 7 p.m. It was the kind of car Maya had only ever seen in magazines, sleek, black, probably worth more than she'd earn in a decade. The driver opened the door for her without a word, and she slid into leather seats that felt like clouds. The Kang residence wasn't a house. It was an estate, a sprawling modern masterpiece of glass and steel set against the Seoul skyline. Maya felt her stomach twist as they passed through security gates that seemed designed to repel armies. This is insane, she thought for the 100th time. What am I doing here? The door opened before she could knock. Dae-ho stood in the entrance, looking somehow different outside of the daycare context. He'd traded his suit for dark slacks and a simple gray sweater, but the effect was no less commanding. You came. Your son is very persuasive. Something flickered in his expression. He gets that from me. Inside, the house was surprisingly warm despite its modern architecture. Jun Seo came barreling down a hallway, colliding with Maya's legs in what she'd come to recognize as his version of a hug. You're here. Come see my room. I cleaned it special. Dinner first, Dae-ho said. Then the house tour. The meal was served in a dining room that overlooked the city lights. Jun Seo sat between them, maintaining a constant stream of chatter that Maya responded to while acutely aware of his father's silent observation. When Jun Seo finally ran out of words and the housekeeper took him to prepare for bed, an uncomfortable silence descended. He hasn't stopped talking since you arrived, Dae-ho said finally. In 3 years, I've never heard him speak this much in a single evening. He's a wonderful child. He is. A pause. His mother left when he was 2. She said she couldn't handle his difficulties. She took a settlement and signed away all parental rights. Dae-ho's voice was flat, but Maya sensed the fury beneath. She calls him defective to anyone who will listen. Said I ruined him somehow. Maya's heart clenched. That's not true. I know. But he heard her say it, the last time she visited. He hasn't spoken to anyone outside this house since. Dae-ho met her eyes. Until you. I didn't do anything special. I just listened. Treated him like a regular kid. That is special. You'd be surprised how rare it is. They sat in silence for a long moment. Mr. Kang. Dae-ho. Dae-ho. The name felt strange on her tongue. Why am I really here? It's not just because of Jun Seo, is it? He rose from the table and moved to the window, his reflection ghosting against the Seoul skyline. Your stepfather and his son are being deported tomorrow. They won't be able to return to Korea. I've also ensured they'll face fraud charges back in the United States, charges that were mysteriously never pursued despite ample evidence. He glanced back at her. You won't have to run anymore. Maya felt the words land somewhere deep in her chest. Why? She whispered. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. No. I don't. He turned to face her fully. But my son chose you. And I've learned to trust his judgment about people. He's remarkably perceptive for someone who refuses to engage with the world. So this is, what? A thank you dinner? An update on my legal situation? It's an offer. Maya's heart rate spiked. What kind of offer? Dae-ho moved back toward the table, stopping close enough that she had to tilt her head to meet his eyes. My mother has been pressuring me to remarry. She parades potential brides through this house on a weekly basis, women from good families who look at Jun Seo like he's a problem to be solved rather than a child to be loved. His jaw tightened. I've refused them all. But she's growing impatient, and in our world, impatient mothers become dangerous mothers. I don't understand what this has to do with me. Jun Seo asked you to marry him. A ghost of a smile touched Dae-ho's lips. I'm suggesting you honor that request. Temporarily. The room tilted. You want me to, what? Pretend to be engaged? To a 5-year-old? To me. His expression was completely serious. My mother will never accept a foreign bride. She'll be so focused on fighting the engagement that she'll stop trying to force other candidates on me. And Jun Seo will have someone he actually wants in his life rather than a parade of strangers who frighten him. That's insane. Perhaps. But it would also give you the full protection of the Kang name. Your stepfather's associates, his connections, anyone he might send after you, they'd think twice before touching someone attached to my family. Maya's mind was reeling. You're asking me to fake an engagement for what? Months? Years? A year. Maximum. Long enough to satisfy the legal complications and convince my mother to abandon her campaign. He paused. I'll compensate you, of course. Generously. Enough that you could return to the United States and start over completely. Or stay in Korea and never work again. Your choice. You're crazy. I've been told that. Frequently. He didn't seem offended. But I'm also serious. Take time to think about it. I don't need an answer tonight. Daddy? They both turned. Jun Seo stood in the doorway in his pajamas, his hair still damp from his bath. He looked between them with that unsettling perceptiveness. Did you ask her? Is she staying? Dae-ho's expression softened infinitesimally. I asked. She's thinking about it. Jun Seo patted across the floor and took Maya's hand, his small fingers warm and trusting. Please stay, he said quietly. I don't want you to disappear like everyone else. Maya looked down at this strange, brilliant, wounded little boy who had proposed marriage while she hid from her demons. She looked at his father, cold, powerful, damaged in ways she was only beginning to glimpse. Two broken people asking her to help them pretend to be a family. She should say no. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was too complicated, too dangerous, too far removed from the simple survival she'd been focused on for nearly 2 years. But she was so tired of running. Okay, she heard herself say. I'll do it. Jun Seo's face lit up like the sun. He threw his arms around her waist and squeezed with all his strength. We're going to be a family, he whispered. A real family. Over his head, Maya met Dae-ho's eyes. Something passed between them, understanding, perhaps. Or warning. Or the first spark of something neither of them was prepared to name. I'll have the contracts drawn up tomorrow, Dae-ho said, but his voice was strangely rough. Welcome to the Kang family, Miss Williams. She should have felt relief. Safety. Victory, even. Instead, as Jun Seo led her toward his room for the promised tour, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just traded one cage for another. Only this time, the cage had gilded bars. And a lock she might never escape. If you've made it this far, you already know this is just the beginning. The real story, the secrets, the power games, the complicated feelings, it's all coming. Hit subscribe right now so you don't miss the next episode. And stay tuned, because in the next part, Maya is about to meet the one person who could destroy everything before it even begins, Kang Dae-ho's mother. And trust me, grandmother makes Harold look like a warm-up. See you in the next video.